Every human being plans the large trajectory of their life. They plan the big themes of their life between lifetimes. And we agree to come in as part of our soul's plan and to take on different challenges. We agree some lives are very short, and this is appropriate. Some lives are much longer. My name is Andrea Curry. My near-death experience happened on a very cold and snowy winter night. Very dangerous driving conditions, the kind of conditions that created the chaos that led to this accident. So I am 63 years old. My near-death experience happened when I was 31, and I did not talk about it for 25 years. I kept it to myself, and I kept it to myself for the simple reason that it was the most extraordinary, wonderful, beautiful thing that had ever happened to me, and I didn't need to justify it or explain it to anyone or try to prove that it had happened. I knew it had happened. And it was only after I discovered an organization called IANS, and I was able to go and speak to them, and they were very kind to me. They said, Andrea, you just are allowed to speak, and we will listen. And I did for 3 hours. And then I left there and I felt free as a bird. I felt terrific. And I began then to share my near-death experience with other people. So I had the extraordinary experience of waking up one morning and seeing a vision in front of me. So it wasn't a dream. You know, when you have a dream, you really have to struggle a bit to write your dream down, to remember the details of your dream. But this happened at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was a vision that was clear and it was detailed. And I saw myself and my husband walking on a snowy sidewalk. I saw that there was a car that came from behind. I saw the color of the car. I saw the make of the car. And I actually saw that this car hit us. And I heard my husband speak. I heard the words that he screamed. Now, all of this was at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I then just started my day and forgot about this vision until that night. It was 10 o'clock at night, and we were leaving a house where we had had a reception. There were many people in this house, and we left at 10 o'clock. And as we were walking down the sidewalk, I never saw the car, but I felt the impact when it hit us. And as I was flying down the road, I heard my husband scream the exact words that I had heard at 7 o'clock that morning. And I realized right away in that split second that this was an example of how time was elastic, how you could see at 7 a.m. something that only happened 15 hours later. And I knew that I had been prepared and warned, and that I shouldn't be afraid. And so I was very badly hit. I came out of my body, and this was the first experience, not the last though, but it was the first experience of really coming out of my body and understanding that my consciousness and who I am was totally not that body that was flat on the ground in the middle of the street. And I looked down at that body, and I knew it was familiar, but yet there I was about 9 feet above with all my thoughts and my emotions and my feelings. And then I saw the chaos, because here we were, husband and wife, hit by a car. We had 3 little children, and there was a big party going on. So everybody started coming out of the house, and there was a huge snowstorm. And I remember feeling very concerned because nobody put a coat on. They were all in a panic and they came out onto the street. But it was a very bad snowstorm that night. And the ambulance came, and it was chaotic all around, and I was trying to talk to people and nobody could hear me. And I finally basically gave up on that scene, and I decided that I was just going to move away from that scene. It became frustrating. I was no way I could communicate with anybody. And then as I began to lift up, I felt this magnificent heat and love and sun and light come around me and envelop me and just move me away from that scene. And then it didn't matter anymore. And I basically floated away into another dimension until this beautiful being of light was standing in front of me, and he addressed me by name. And this part always gets me because I was so shocked that he knew my name. I thought, who am I? I'm so small, I'm nothing. How can he know my name? And he knew my name. And he said, Andrea. And I was like, huh? But I knew he was loving and kind, but he was so majestic. I never saw a face, but he said, do you want to stay or do you want to go back? And I had 3 little children, 1, 3, and 5. And I said, I must go back. Even if every bone is broken, I must go back. And then he asked me again, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I gave the same answer, and then I was thrown into this vortex, and I remember it perfectly to this day. The thing about a near-death experience, you never forget one detail. You just never forget it. And I was thrown into this vortex, and I was using my hands and my feet to keep myself in this incredible whirling mass of light. And yet it wasn't a physical body, but it was my astral body. And I felt like I was in a body, and I was using my hands and my feet, and I knew that I had to stay in this whirling whirlpool of energy. And then it just took me back into my body, and I woke up. And I did not break one bone, but my whole body was black and blue, and it took me a whole year to recover from that. But the best part about it all was all that came after. All the psychic gifts, all the visits, and the knowledge, and the mediumship, and the communing with spirit that began very soon, because the day of my accident was also the day of my grandmother's funeral. And what happened is, and I only learned this much later because I didn't know at the time, but she and I had made an understanding that she would come and walk. It's called a walk-in. It's where an entity doesn't move on into the light because they have something still to achieve on the earth plane. And I and her agreed. I didn't know this at the time. All I knew was that something was really different, and I could feel that my grandmother was with me. Not only with me, but in me. And the way I knew right away was I started showing and using all her habits. Now, she had lived alone many years, so her eating habits were not the same as my eating habits. And all of a sudden, I could feel her with me. And it wasn't always pretty, but it was like, what is going on here? And a few years into my new life, because actually my near-death experience, it was explained to me, it was not a near-death experience. It was a death. It was the end. And I was married, and I had taken a vow when I was married that it was till death do us part, right? And I realized that was my death, and I ended my marriage. And I knew that I had to do that in order to be able to live fully and live a life with love. I could not remain in a marriage that did not have any love in it. But I would say the most extraordinary experience began when my daughter passed away in 2016. So Chloe had cancer. I took care of her the last year of her life. And it was on the last night of her life. She was in the hospital and I was sleeping in a chair in the hospital. And then at one point I woke up. And I felt like a tsunami of joy. It was like I was hit in the middle of the chest by this incredible joyful feeling. And I woke up and I knew it was done. And then I went back to her bedside. And this was a very difficult moment because you have to compute and realize that, yes, that's just the body. And because I had the near-death experience, I was much calmer probably than I would have been otherwise. And right away, Chloe was beside me, right away. And she said, "Mom, thank you for being so calm. It helps me to let go." And then I started talking with Chloe. And you know what she said to me? This is a really beautiful thing. I learned a lot from talking to Chloe. I learned a lot about what happens on the other side. I learned a lot about what it's like to function without a physical body. I learned a lot about actually, like, that's home. This is a little satellite journey that we're on for a very short period of time. But home is when we are not in the body. And it's so beautiful and magnificent that if we really understood and knew more about it, if we didn't forget the way we actually are programmed to forget, we wouldn't want to stay here. We would want to go home because it's tough being on the human plane. It's tough being in a body. It's hard when you're a good, kind, loving person who's just filled with gratitude to see all the way the human beings treat each other makes you not want to be part of all that. But we're here, and we're here for a reason. And I know that I am here to bring in the light. And I know I wake up every morning and I say, what can I do today to honor Chloe and to bring more love into the world? And that is the mission that I have. And so the way that I do it is I do it with sound healing. It is one of the most effective ways to raise our vibration, communicate with spirit. We see based on our own beliefs. That's sort of the energy that greets us is the energy of the beliefs that we have based on our religious beliefs, our cultural beliefs. I never saw a face. I don't know who it was. I think it was Jesus, but then again, it was not the size of a human figure. It was much larger than a human figure. But it was kindly, and it was loving, and it was gentle, but it was very strong and forceful. You know, it didn't say, "Andrea, everything's going to be okay, you know, I hope you're all right." No, it said, "What do you want to do?" And it was just a question was posed, but I never saw a face, so I don't know who it was. But the energy felt male to me. It felt like a male energy. Yes, so that's all I can tell you. So in my experience, the near-death experience itself was, for me, was extraordinary in the warping of time, seeing the whole thing in the morning and having it happen at night. This was a great gift. But the experience itself was actually very simple. I just love, though, how the timing of this car coming down the street, losing control, and coming into a driveway and hitting us at the exact moment that we were there. it really makes you stop and say, are we, puppets to be moved right and left to accomplish and to learn and to grow? Like, how much do we really control? We're told we have free will, but how much of it is really free will? I know that for me, the real adventure began after the near-death experience. And my grandmother, who basically walked in and decided that she had things she wanted to finish and accomplish in her life, she came to me one day and said, we're going into business. And I had no desire to go into business, but you can't argue with your dead grandmother when she comes to you and says, go get this picture, make a logo, we're going into business. So this is the kind of communication that I would hear really clear after this experience. And I did. I did start a business, and I called it her name, Grandma Emily's Granola. And it's a good thing I did, because my ex-husband went bankrupt. I ended up with no money and no job and 3 little kids to support. And I did that with this business, Grandma Emily's Granola. So that's a whole story in and of itself. But the closeness of this plane and the spirit world, it's like it's just one world. So ever since the near-death experience, I always feel like I have 1 foot here and 1 foot there. And other people started talking to me as well. And I realized that you can do automatic writing. You don't have to go into a big fancy trance. You don't have to do complicated rituals. You don't have to have a lot of training. You just have to let go of doubt. And you can do it. And you sit and you just start writing. And you can get up and go do other things and come back and write again. It's really quite extraordinary. So I did a lot of automatic writing, and I was fortunate because since I had the near-death experience and I received all this opportunity to develop these psychic gifts, it took me like 25 years to develop them. Every human being plans the large trajectory of their life. They plan the big themes of their life between lifetimes. And we agree to come in as part of our soul's plan and to take on different challenges. We agree some lives are very short, and this is appropriate. Some lives are much longer. Some lives have Actually, in all of our lives, we have the opportunity to have different exit points. And we may choose to take an earlier exit point, or we may choose not to leave them because there's more to accomplish and to stay longer in human form. But every soul comes in with a plan, and every life is of the appropriate length, and all the hardships, they're lessons. And if you dig and dig deeper and deeper as you're living these lessons, you can take this pain and you can turn it into learning. You can become much more of a witness to your life instead of seeing it as, oh, poor me. There are so much to learn in hardship. So we create our soul's plan, and then we come into human embodiment to live that plan. Now, you would think that we would choose only a beautiful, easy life. And some people, it is appropriate, and they do choose an easy life. But for most of us, we choose a life that will help us learn the most lessons that we can learn so that we can advance our soul. And this is how we learn. There is a metaphor that a diamond is created from pressure. If there's no pressure, then there's no diamond. And it's the same thing with a human being. We need to have situations that help us grow. And we grow when we are challenged. We grow when we face hardship. And we can choose. We may choose not to grow. We may forget completely our soul's plan. We forget completely that we have this team also to help us. But the fact is we do. And so we come in and we start to live these really difficult situations, and we forget. We forget that this is all just like a play. It's like we are all players on a stage. And today I'm wearing this costume. And even when I see like a priest or anybody, I think to myself, this is the costume that they are wearing for the role that they are playing. And that's what it is. If we can take a little step back, we realize this is all a play to help us learn. Sometimes people ask me, why can't I remember my previous lifetimes? Why do I come in here with such amnesia and I forget that I've actually made a plan. I forget the relationships that we have agreed to beforehand. And the answer is that you need to forget. Because if you were remembering your past lives, you would not be able to fully live in this one. And it's the present moment that matters. It's really, there's an expression that says life is a master class, and it's true. It's difficult being in a body, and it's difficult going through so much hardship and just on a personal level with relationships and disease and wars, but they're there to help us learn. And when we look around and we see that human beings are still killing other human beings, people are still hurting other people, we have not learned. We have not learned enough. And so the challenge for some of us that see this and know that this is basically a school is to stay in the light. And it's a tough challenge. It's really not easy. It means that you have to distance yourself from all the chaos and stay in the light and keep your vibration high and pray and love and all those things, practice forgiveness and just vibrate in gratitude. And these are challenging things to do, especially when you're surrounded by so much drama and so much difficulty. And this is our challenge as people who come in at this time in the planet. We chose to come in, and with everything else going on, to really radiate light, and it's not easy. And you have to work on it every day. Every day. Why do bad things happen to good people? And sometimes people explain it as being karma, and that you come to resolve your karma from past lives. And I think that we don't 100% know. We all have theories about that, but we do know that our time here is a very, very short part of our existence as a soul. This is just one very brief moment in time. And I believe that I can resolve whatever karma I have acquired in my lifetime. Did I come here with the imprint of past karma? I believe I did in certain things, certain fears that I've had since I was young and I had to overcome. But the idea is that I have the opportunity in this life to let go of all my karma. And the most powerful way to do it really is to forgive and to atone. And to atone is to ask for forgiveness. And so I don't need, especially once you know that the idea of your lessons and your past karma will follow you, and your relationships, the karma you create between relationships will follow you to be resolved in the next lifetime. Once you know that, you can just resolve now, atone now, forgive now. Isn't that easier? And then you're free. So now we're talking about the specific example, let's say, of suicide. And I totally do not have all the answers. I have had many conversations with people actually who have taken their lives. And my understanding is that suicide is not part of your soul contract, but sometimes your sensitivity, your inability to function on this plane just makes it impossible to stay here. And there are people who just are happier not being in the body. They came, they gave it their best shot, and it just was impossible for them. And they're much happier, much happier being outside of the body. However, it's a tough thing for the families, for the friends, for the people that are still here on the human plane, because many of us think that death is the end of life, and it is not the end of life. It is simply just the taking off of this lovely, amazing vehicle and then returning to our more natural state. But it is hard because suicide is not well understood. There are also a lot of beliefs that there is punishment for committing suicide. There is not punishment. There is not punishment, in fact, for anything, because the divine does not punish. We do that to ourselves here. We are very good at punishing ourselves as human beings, as condemning ourselves and judging and criticizing, but the divine doesn't punish. It just loves. It's true, God is love. It's true. It seems so simple, but it's true. So whatever way happened that you shed your body and went back home and back into spirit, you are loved and you are nurtured and you are held, and there is no punishment for suicide. And it is not easy, and it is not undertaken easily by somebody who does it either. But sometimes it is appropriate. Souls choose to incarnate in order to learn the lessons that are the most valuable for them. And this is determined with their team. We don't plan our journey to Earth alone. We don't live our journey on Earth alone. We just have forgotten this. So you would think that people would choose only easy lives and comfortable lives, but they choose what is most appropriate for the lessons that they need to learn. So we learn in hardship, and we learn from illness. Now we also learn how to cope with illness. We learn sometimes, depending on how evolved we are, we learn how to work with our cells, work with our DNA, and overcome illness. This happens as well. And these people are lights for the world. They show the way. They show how the body can be healed. So I believe my daughter said it actually after she passed. And she said, Mom, all is as it should be. And this is a difficult thing for a parent to hear and to accept when they lose a child. And this is a difficult thing for someone to accept if they are living with great hardship. How can you accept that all is as it should be? But if you take a different stand, one thing you control, you may not control the world outside of you, but you control your thoughts. You control your own thinking. And this is where it begins. This is where your healing begins.